Chris, what do you make of Paul Ryan's decision not to endorse Donald Trump yet? And what do you think of Trump's chances of unifying the party?
Well, it was certainly a surprise, not only to Trump, but I think to basically the entire political world. And I think what it indicates is the kind of divided mind that somebody like Paul Ryan and a lot of Republicans in Congress have, because on the one hand, yes, they'd like to support the nominee at the party. They don't want to be at war with him. But on the other hand, they're not quite sure that they can trust Trump, and that if they back him, that he won't end up hurting them in November. I mean, if you're Paul Ryan, there's only one thing you're really concerned about, and that is holding on to the House for Republicans. Okay, yeah, I mean, if Trump loses, you can live with that. If the Senate Republican majority goes down, you can live with that, but you can't live with the House majority. And at this point, it's not at all clear whether being tied to Donald Trump or keeping your distance from Donald Trump is the right way. So I think basically what Ryan was saying is, let's hold on, let's wait, let's see if Trump pivots and becomes a more conventional and disciplined politician, and until then we'll just keep our powder dry.
Well, Chris, in most instances, the vice presidential choice doesn't make that big a difference. Might it be different this time, given the fact that Trump doesn't have the political experience?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, people are going to vote for the top of the ticket. They don't. The only thing you can do is hurt yourself, as, for instance, I think ultimately John McCain did with Sarah Palin. But I think that the one thing it could do here is, given the fact that Trump is such an unconventional politician, is it could reassure people. If he picks someone with some experience, somebody with some credentials as a conservative, bona fide politician, I think that might reassure people. And also someone who they would have a sense that's a steady hand. I mean, in a sense, not quite as extreme as in the Trump case, when George W. Bush, who was a relative newcomer, an outsider to Washington, picked somebody like Dick Cheney as his running mate. That was done in part to reassure people, hey, look, there's a wise old Washington hand who will be in the White House.
Yeah, it's certainly premature, but here in Georgia, we've heard rumblings about potentially Newt Gingrich. What do you think of that?
Well, Gingrich is one of the few people at this point who is saying he'd consider it. Again, you know, the thing that you see with Ryan is what you're seeing with a lot of these candidates. If you're Marco Rubio, if you're John Kasich, and you think that you might have a political future, if you get to be vice president, it's a pretty good decision. On the other hand, if the Trump campaign ends up in a ball of flame, that you could destroy your political career. So I think people are going to be very careful. Somebody like Newt Gingrich, who's at the end of his political career, in a sense it almost would be like pulling him back onto the stage, doesn't have much to lose. But somebody like Marco Rubio, it's a much tougher choice.
Right. On the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders says he's going to stay in it until the last Democrat votes in the primaries. That would be June 14th in Washington, D.C. He says it's good for the Democratic Party. Is it good for Hillary Clinton, do you think?
No, I don't think at all. It depends to some degree. I mean, first of all, as long as he's in there, and look, he's not just running, he's winning. He beat her in Indiana. Right. I think he's probably going to beat her in some of the states out west, a liberal state like Oregon. He certainly would have a chance. It certainly doesn't enhance the momentum for her. I think the real question is he going to campaign primarily making the affirmative case for himself, or is he going to spend a lot of his time going after Clinton? And so far, at least, he's still going after Clinton on things like her ties to Goldman Sachs and big money, and she's soft on Wall Street and some of her trade support for trade deals, things like that. That's not helpful, and it makes it harder for her to pivot to the general election. I mean, it's so odd because we all thought it was going to be exactly the opposite, that Clinton would be able to pivot to the general election and go after Trump while Trump was still trying to get to the magic number. Now it's exactly the opposite. Trump is the presumptive nominee, and it's Clinton who still has to fend off an opponent within the Democratic Party.
One of the many surprises this campaign season. What else do you have coming up on Fox News Sunday this weekend, Chris?
Well, we will have the latest on Trump's standing as the nominee and the split inside the party as seen by the division with Paul Ryan, who says he's not ready. Very interesting turn of phrase. Not saying he's not going to, but saying he's not ready to support Trump. And then we're also going to be talking live with the governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory, he faces a federal deadline on Monday. The Justice Department says that North Carolina bathroom law limiting transgenders' use of bathrooms in North Carolina, that is a violation of discrimination laws, and that they would cut off federal funding if they don't do something to the law. We'll get the latest from Governor McCrory on what they're going to do.
We'll be watching as always. Chris, thanks.
You bet. Thank you, Russ.